We got a cold-blooded killer here. A man who nobody sees. A phantom who, so far, hasn't made any mistakes.
You want burgers, hot dogs, some chicken, and ribs. Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!
So I'm thinking I should start paying someone to narrate my life, you know? Like,
why?
I don't know. It seems like it helps out. Even though I might be seeing the same things, if I had a narrator say those and repeat what I'm seeing, you know, I think it would help me out. Like in today's episode, you know, our narrator pretty much says what we're seeing on screen.
What? Oh.
You know, like Lee woke up to go take a piss. It was April 24th, 2021.
Your life would be so boring if it was narrated.
It really would be.
I mean, it already is boring, but like, oh God.
And Lee started his second cupcake, knowing full well that this was not healthy.
His second cupcake in 30 seconds.
Extra butter? What the Just the narrator can't stand my eating habits.
Lee just had a heart attack, and I left for the day.
Full six-pack, and he's still eating popcorn. This heart is not going to take anymore. But
maybe if he dies, I can get a half day off.
Yeah, but I want that narrator from you know, our movie today. Well, anyway, welcome to Night of the Horror File, a horror movie and genre film podcast where we take a horror movie and genre film and show it to my beautiful wife, Brittany, and we gauge her reactions, I guess. I don't... we see if she can make sense of what I'm showing her for the present week. What did we watch this week?
The town that dreaded sundown. What?
The town that shredded sundown.
That's not. The town that dreaded sundown. I don't like the name of this movie.
The town that shredded sundown sounds like some kind of like shitty like rock band biopic or something.
The town that shredded all the cheese.
Anyway,
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Is that a movie from Wisconsin or something?
Really? Yeah, that would be cool. That would be a great Wisconsin documentary. I bet there's like a million Wisconsin documentaries that have cheese in the title or something.
All of them.
Like the straight Gouda or something like that. I don't know. Anyway.
Is there a serial killer from Wisconsin? It's like,
yeah, Ed Gein, although he's not a serial killer. And then you also have well, that's Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Yeah, you have old Jeff Dahmer, you know?
Well, their names aren't cheesy enough.
Name's not cheesy enough. Oh.
Was his name like Jeffrey
Cheddar
Gouda Dahmer or something? Gorgonzola?
Cheddar Dahmer. I don't know. Can you come up with a good pun name out of cheese? Anyway.
How
did we get on cheese names? This is off to a goofy start and with good reason. This is a goofy fucking movie in parts, man. This movie is like Whiplash the movie.
I wouldn't call it that.
We'll get into it, but I swear this movie goes from like screwball comedy to fucking like really awkward, rapey kind of trombone horror.
Trombone horror.
Anyway, today's feature is, of course, directed by the, independent film legend, Charles B. Pierce. And Pierce is, to me, the first of the modern independent filmmakers. And he made his mark on our genre today with the faux documentary, The Legend of Boggy Creek, which we've got to cover at some point. An Arkansas native, he based that one off of The Legend of the Folk Monster, a 7-foot tall Bigfoot-like creature. It's a wonderful movie. And they just released a new Blu-ray upscaled 4K version. It's amazing.
Is it?
It is. It is to me. I don't think after you watch today's feature, I don't know if you'll care for it. Although I don't know if you cared for this movie. We'll find out at the end. Now, first, he interviewed actual folk monster or resident
folk monster.
He actually
interviewed the monster.
He interviewed the folk monster.
Nice.
Um,
How did he schedule that?
the monster time. They keep odd hours. It's like a Twilight kind
Do
of
they
thing.
have agents? Like,
I'm sure they do. I think at this point, Bigfoot has an agent.
I mean, he's pretty famous.
I'll have my agent read over it, and then I'll decide if I want to appear in your fuzzy video.
But anyway,
That might be a thing, actually.
But anyway, for that movie, he interviewed the residents of Folk and who told them, their tales. And then Pierce, along with his friend Earl E. Smith, adapted those into a screenplay. That film was shot on a camera Charles B. Pierce built himself at home, and the movie was a giant success. So,
Was it, though?
it really was.
In your eyes?
No, it was a huge success.
In your eyes?
The Legend of Boggy Creek made so much goddamn money, but for some reason it was kind of lost to time until recently. It started resurfacing at horror conventions and stuff. Okay, maybe in my eyes.
I was about to say.
But it
doesn't sound promising.
It was a drive-in hit, though. And now, oh, you. Feels like a sitcom in here tonight. But, like I said, it was shot on a camera he built himself at home, So this guy was indie legend. So for some of you independent filmmakers out there that look up to Charles B. Pierce, look into him. This guy was your founding father.
Well, then.
Yes.
Daddy.
Well, because long before The Blair Witch would surprise everybody with its massive success, and then that shitty movie that everybody loved, Paranormal Activity, surprised everybody. Yeah. There really wasn't anything like this besides, there was other independent filmmakers and stuff, but he's kind of the pioneer of these kind of successful movies. Now, that actual, by the way, I know this is the town that dreaded sundown. I don't know why I'm talking about the Legend of Boggy Creek, but I don't know if we'll ever get to the Legend of Boggy Creek, so I better talk about it. But that movie went on to gross around $1.2 million in 1972 money. So that's what I mean.
Nice.
Very big success. But, following that movie was a little difficult. How do you not be a one-hit wonder? Is what Pierce was trying not to do. Right. And, he was encouraged by, studios and people like that to, make a sequel. Make a sequel to Boggy Creek. And that would be your first idea. Let's go ahead and fucking ramp this sequel up. But that's not what Pierce wanted to do. He wanted to prove himself an actual filmmaker, not just duplicating his own ideas.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
His action comedy Bootleggers in 1974 came out with Slim Pickens. That was his next flick. Then a few Westerns here and there. And which, by the way, the Westerns are really good. White Hawk is one of his best ones. But anyway, he was also...
By whose standards?
Maybe by mine. Okay. Maybe by mine. But he was also working as a set designer during that time. Now, it was in 1976 when Charles B. Pierce returned to horror with today's feature, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, loosely based on the true story of the Phantom Killer, or the Moonlight Murders, I believe is what it was called. It was a killer. He stalked and murdered 5 people and injured several others in Texarkana in 1946. Pierce got the idea because he remembered hearing the news stories and being scared of those kind of stories. And it was a terrifying time. When this guy was stalking everybody. And I think we can kind of forgive the looseness of the facts here, because back then you didn't have the wealth of true crime knowledge we have now. And so that left you playing telephone and gathering other people's stories. And that's kind of what he did for this movie. And so very, very loosely based on the true story, you guys. Even though this movie, when it came out, it was amongst several movies that were coming out in the 70s that were true stories, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and stuff. And but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre didn't really lean too much on that true story bit. Right. I think I explained during that episode we did, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where there's a difference when they say based on a true story. It usually means it's a big old helping of bullshit. And when you say a true story, that typically means this movie, or, the movie is real. It's based on actual events. And like they say in this movie, the names have just been changed.
Right.
Well, that's kind of what they went with with The Town That Dreaded Sundown. They slapped True Story on the poster and also slapped, which got Pierce in trouble because the advertising company slapped, and he's still stalking in Arkansas today.
Oh, shit.
In Texarkana, he still stalks the streets. And people were like upset about that because it's like, hey, come on, man.
We've forgotten about this. You need to forget about it too.
Please. Of course, Pierce's partner, Earl Smith, returned to flesh out the story. And about 19 real Texarkana locals starred in the film. It took about 4 weeks, and they shot this in several locations. Scott, Arkansas, Shreveport, Louisiana, Garland City, Arkansas, and, of course, Texarkana, Texas, where the majority of the film takes place. This flick, honestly, is one of the grandfathers of the modern slasher, and I don't think it gets enough credit for that. Not saying that Pierce set out to create a slasher movie. That's not really, I don't think that was his goal. But if you ask a room full of horror nerds,
I didn't.
What are some of the first North American slasher films? And you'll probably hear a lot of stuff pointing to John Carpenter's Halloween from 1978, Black Christmas from 1974. That actually predates all of those, and that's more of a Canadian movie because of Bob Clark. So, Canada kind of beat us to the modern slasher, but... and you'll always have people talking about Psycho and a few other movies from the 60s that really did kind of get the slasher genre on its base.
Yeah.
But you'll always have that one quiet person, which is me, who will just kind of mention, The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Because several of your tropes in the modern slasher and in the 80s slasher, especially the 80s slasher, kind of come from here. Black Christmas, of course, predates all these, but that one, not necessarily as close to your modern slasher as this movie.
Right.
And after this, you had Halloween, and that really got the ball rolling. And then, of course, you get Friday the 13th and so on. But this movie kind of came before those. So I don't think it gets, I don't feel like this movie's unknown. I'm not going to be calling this a hidden gem because this is obviously talked about by lots of horror circles. But its contribution to the slasher subgenre isn't nearly as brought up as Black Christmas or Halloween. And by the way, I will get into it later. I don't know why. You can't compare The Town That Dreaded Sundown to any other movie. Everybody has to stop doing that. Because this is not.
Lee's going to have an aneurysm.
Because it's dumb, and I'll get into it a little later, but this is its own thing. It's very much a Charles B. Pierce movie. It's really, you cannot compare it to any other slasher because it wasn't made like one. It wasn't supposed to be one.
Lee's going to have an aneurysm.
Yes. It also kind of brought something into true crime that we didn't have until this point. Kind of revolutionized the whole idea. And this is just coming from me. I don't know. I didn't live back in the 60s and 50s and stuff. So I don't know if reenactments were a big deal during those times. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Yeah, because we were brought up, I swear it was the 80s and 90s that brought about the TV shows with reenactments of crimes.
Right.
So I
fucking America's Most Wanted.
Yeah. I feel like
Dateline.
Charles B. Pierce was really the grandfather of that kind of thing because this whole movie is supposed to be that way.
Right.
It's supposed to be a reenactment of the true story.
That's why it was so boring.
It's very offbeat. And yes, I agree. It is boring to some people, but I love this movie. But anyway, we'll talk about our thoughts later on. So let's jump right into it. The Town That Dreaded Sundown from 1976.
So 8 months after the World War II, where you died because I put you back in time and killed you in the World War II.
Oh shit, this has all been one big ghost story. Wouldn't that be fucking creepy to everybody? Like everybody's like, man, no one's seen Lee in public, or in very many videos and stuff. And they look me up and I've been dead for 100 years.
Well, how did I get your voice on recording? I don't know, but...
I don't know. Maybe it's like a Scream thing, which if Scream is actually the closest movie to this movie. Anyway, we'll get into it later.
I don't believe you.
But before we get started, as you all probably know, this movie, as I said, is based on a true story. But for today, we aren't going to we're not going to spend a shit ton of time on the real case, talking about that true crime case, because that'd be the whole fucking podcast, and that's boring as sin.
We are not a true crime podcast.
We are not a true crime podcast. But I'll throw out a few blurbs here and there, and of course, on how I think I feel like Charles B. Pierce got the feeling right. Like, I think not the facts.
Yes,
not at
I
all.
understand that.
Not at all. There was not a trombone murder at any point during the real case, but I do feel like he got the feeling of what kind of terror a small town would go through.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll get into it.
You have feelings. That's nice.
I believe Brittany has feelings too.
I have feelings.
You watched this, of course, the obligatory 2 times.
Yes.
And my Lord, Brittany had to take this in halves, which, like we say on this show, it is perfectly fine to like a horror movie and it's perfectly fine to dislike a horror movie. But don't compare it to fucking Halloween.
Don't do that.
Stop comparing shittier movies to better movies. It doesn't make any sense. You're comparing hot garbage to fine dining. It's stupid. Anyway.
So 8 months after World War II, Texarkana was up and coming, and most of the soldiers were back home from war.
Our boys was back.
Are you going to talk like that the whole time?
I don't know. They do. And it is like a charming Southern kind of quality to this fucking movie where at any moment you think they might all stop for dinner and spend an hour and a half eating dinner and talking about the weather. Like, that's how the dialogue travels in this fucking movie. It really does.
Yes.
Like, it was just... How about them? Well, they got the murderer out there. Did you post people? I post people down that road. Well, that's not enough. Need to post a few more people. And then Brittany's over here like, oh my God.
My brain doesn't work that slow.
I'm just over in the corner whittling at a stick. Yep. Catching the phantom.
Anyway. So Sunday, March 3rd, 1946 is when the terror started. The narrator goes on to say that this story is true and only the names have been changed. And the narrator talks a lot through this. I do not tell you when it's the narrator.
No, we're not going to read off the complete narration.
No.
We don't want you to. That would be really fucking funny if we had a narrator over the top of all this.
Oh my God.
Just repeating what we said. It would be an unlistenable podcast.
I am the narrator. So I am the narrator.
Oh yeah, Brittany's our narrator.
So that would just be obnoxious.
Yes. So Texarkana, though, where our story takes place, is of course a real town in Bowie County, Texas. It's a twin city. It's what they call the Twin City because it neighbors with Texarkana, Arkansas. In 1946, when this case really happened, it always had a reputation of being kind of rowdy and kind of a railroad town, No, I think rowdy is the wrong word.
I don't know.
I don't feel like this is rowdy.
Oh no, this is not rowdy.
I guess rowdy.
No.
I guess rowdy in the sense that it was hustling and bustling. Like I said, the boys had just come back from World War II, and we really needed that kind of narrator in this. Wouldn't that have been funny?
I don't think we needed a narrator at all.
8 months after World War II, Texarkana was up and coming, and most of the soldiers were back home.
So you're telling me that we needed somebody to tell us this 3 seconds of dialogue?
Well, I think
that happened in this.
I think without the narrator, I think this would be even weirder, though. But I'm fine. And that's part of the charm of this movie. I think the weirdness is why I love it. I really do think that's why. And I think that's why other people love it too. But, I don't know. But after the war, things were in flux in this town. People nicknamed it Little Chicago, in fact. I don't know if they had good pizza. But the Phantom Killer case really did terrify the fuck out of these people.
Yeah.
I mean, with good reason. You live in a small town like this and somebody's offing motherfuckers. You're going to get a little scared.
Well, yeah.
People were afraid to leave their houses. The Phantom Killer case, it drove people indoors and they really would not leave their houses at sundown, hence the name. I don't think anybody needed me to explain that.
No.
But the people at Texarkana must have been pretty good sports in the long run, though, because this movie is part of a Movies in the Park Halloween Festival sponsored by the Texas Department of Parks and Recreation. So in Texarkana, close to Halloween, you can watch this movie.
And be reminded of
and
all
be
of
reminded
these
of the
killings.
deaths.
Well, you know what? At least they did something good in 1946. They stayed in their houses when they were told to. I mean, some people.
Maybe. I don't know. If you would have required them, okay, everybody, we need you to wear a mask to prevent the Phantom from killing young kids trying to have sex. And everybody, what about my freedoms? Oh, I'm sorry. It's Texarkana. What about my freedoms?
What about my
I think,
freedoms?
I'd like the freedom to not wear a mask to protect myself from the Phantom. I don't think it's enough that you can tell me I'll get to take my mask off.
And okay, I guess I'm kind of getting the whiplash. Okay, so you got that.
Mm-hmm.
You got these men just talking like this, just very monotone and slow and talking like this. And then you've got these women over here.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It is a whiplash effect because like you get lulled into the, the normal town. It's literally like going to like a bank in a small town and listening to conversations. And then you get like this fucking scene out of nowhere. It's like if I was just telling you a story and then I progressively started screaming at it, like sentences at you randomly. Yes. Because breaking up all this dialogue and these weird moments with characters that really aren't like necessary. It's not necessary. There's a lot of moments that are not necessary. I mean, to me, they're necessary because this movie is so whacked out. It's great. But then you got these fucking crazy ass horror scenes in the middle of it. And it's just like, whoa, this shit's getting real.
Ooh, and these women are screamers.
Oh my God, man. The women in this movie have a set of lungs on them. Yes. And it makes you appreciate the good old fashioned screams of the past. Remember?
The actual screams.
Yeah.
So a couple goes to a park and the man is trying to get with the girl, obviously. Mm-hmm. She denies him and then says she hears something. Then we see someone walking up to the car, and this person lifts the hood to the car, pulls the wires out, and the woman screams and doesn't stop screaming because we just talked about that.
Brittany was very confused at this wire scene because...
Okay, my thing was, I thought back in the day, and I think I realized what happened was, originally they did put the engines in the front of the car. I thought that they put the engines in the back of the car. No, apparently... Yeah, and engines in the back of the car. Apparently, they only did that with certain kinds of cars. And later on,
it wasn't like a whole. It wasn't like a whole decade of cars with engines in the back of the car.
That's what I thought.
But what he pulls out there is spark plug wires. Like before we started putting these big plastic hoopajube things on top of our engines to prevent people from working on them. God damn it! Everything was just out in the open. So of course, it would have been possible to just grab spark plugs and just pull them apart.
Right.
Or the wires, of course, not actual spark plugs. Our killer's not superhuman, as we come to find out.
Right.
But also, does he try to give his girlfriend, does he try to go down on his girlfriend?
No,
here?
I think he's just laying down on her.
Oh, people are laying on people.
Okay, we will get into that. We will get into that later. Okay, I have my own fucking rant about that shit. Okay,
even the people wanting to have sex.
This is not the time for that conversation. I have a segment in my brain for that, and this is not it.
Okay.
So the man's trying to start the car, but obviously it won't start. The Phantom breaks the window and drags the man out. This man's name is Sammy, by the way.
Which our child's name is Sammy. So some lady starts screaming Sammy on the TV. He comes running.
He's like, what? What?
They're calling my name.
Yes. He didn't say it like that.
I don't know why our child turned into to the fucking captain on this fucking movie.
So the Phantom attacks the woman in the car, and then the next morning there are people driving down this road, and the woman is halfway on the road and halfway off, and she's bloody but not dead.
Nope.
Then the ambulance comes to take her, and another one comes to get the guy who's also not dead.
Right. And that is kind of true. Like the first two victims actually didn't die. The strongest parts of this movie are the reenactments of the assaults and murders. Charles B. Pierce actually came under fire for some of this because of how violent and brutal he goes with these scenes. Because, I mean, like we just talked about earlier, they are just out of nowhere. These really fucking brutal scenes. And then, the rest of the movie keeps getting interrupted by the director himself as the comic relief, but we'll get to that. I would argue, though, that for a movie based on actual killings, this is one of the few that at least tries to show you the true horror of it.
Right.
Like, at least the spirit of it. I don't know. I'd have to really research this case to really get it. I don't know much about this murder case. But, like, at least we get to see some stuff. And so by the end of the movie, we're not treating the killer as a rock star. Right. I think out of all the movies based on a true crime, I think this one kind of gets it right. I think it deserves some props for that. But in fact, for you true crime junkies, while the town that dreaded Sundown isn't a true account of what happened, and there's some air quotes for you, it doesn't shy from the violence,
I do agree with that.
I think that's where, he really gets it right. Because in most, and that's why I said you don't feel good about the murders in this movie.
Right.
And I argue that that's the difference between this and an actual slasher movie, which slashers were coming out in the 70s. I mean, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is kind of a slasher, so it came in 74 before this movie.
Yeah.
So I think you're not feeling good about those.
Right. So the police go to see the woman in the hospital and ask her about the person that attacked them. The doctor says they are too heavily sedated to talk. I wish I was too heavily sedated to talk.
Well, this is 1946, so it's probably like opium or something.
Fuck yeah, I want to do that.
Well, we gave her some cocaine. Brightened her right up.
Yeah, let's do that. Anyway.
There was no cocaine in this town, or at least the town in this movie. Everybody's going too slow to be on cocaine.
No cocaine. So the doctor says that there wasn't any evidence of rape, but she still was bitten heavily on the back, the breast, and the stomach.
Which they don't go... I mean, they kind of talk about that a little bit, and they show it on one of the victims, but that part creeps me the fuck out about this.
Because he was like, she was chewed.
Yeah, he chewed her nipples and shit, and you're like, whoa. Hang on. Like,
what is happening?
And that's what we're talking about, the pacing and the feel of this movie, is because, like, for the most part, it feels like a small town movie, and then you got like somebody chewing breasts and shit. Right. You're like, wait a sec, man. It doesn't feel like this is the movie where that belongs.
Right.
But I guess the real killer did that in real life, so you had to include it.
Right. So at the police station, they say they have nothing on the suspect except that it was a man wearing a white hood over his face. And they say that the high school and college kids should be warned against parking on what they're calling lonely roads or lovers' lanes.
Yeah.
And now we meet Buddy Turner, a soldier that returned home from overseas a few weeks ago, and he's with his girlfriend Emma Lou. They've been together about 6 weeks. By the way.
Okay.
What's his name? Buddy.
Yes.
Is 29 years old.
Okay.
And Emma Lou, 17.
Well, and we talked about this on Shooting the Shit, how 50s music and stuff really portrayed the time period.
Yes.
She's 13 and that's all right by me. Sweet Little 16. That was a song that was very popular. So, oh my God. I don't think America has ever been great.
I don't think so
I'm just going to declare that now. But anyway, by the way, though, during the scene, they start talking about the war or being in Japan because it's raining. And Buddy says something about, like, it reminds me of Japan. It's always raining over there.
Yeah.
Does he just not so subtly mention the massive amount of Japanese sex workers that he's been with in this little scene? Because she's like, oh, I bet something about the Japanese girls. He's like, they sure know how to pleasure a man. That's just like, whoa, buddy.
She started it.
She did.
And he even says that you started it.
Yeah, these two people are horny.
People weren't allowed to be horny in 1946.
How much war poon did you get, buddy?
Not enough. apparently.
Well, that's what I mean, but I think people are hornier than they let on, you know.
Well, yeah, they just didn't talk about that shit.
Yeah,
back
your
then.
great grandmas are going to tell you about the sex stories they swapped in Lover's Lane.
Ooh.
Oh, so as we watch this movie, I think this is a very different kind of movie from what you're used to and what you've seen on this for this show. I really do. I don't think we've seen anything quite like it, because this movie is very, like I said, it's very much a Charles B. Pierce movie. Very much not Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I say, independent filmmakers, if you're starting out independently wanting to make a horror movie, go watch some Charles B. Pierce movies to get some ideas, because I mean, there is some really cool shit in this movie that I don't think it gets enough credit for. There's a really cool cinematography work, There's a scene towards the end of the movie where he attacks people in their house, and this guy gets shot through the window. That is a cool effect, how they did that. But anyway, the use of narration is, it's one of his earlier things, he did with this movie and The Legend of Boggy Creek. And Vern Stierman, who narrated Boggy Creek, returns here with he has this no-nonsense Joe Friday speech pattern. And I'm a like smart ass cocky son of a bitch with the way I talk, so I can't like recreate that, but it is it's unlike, it's hard to repeat.
Yeah,
like,
you can't. You have to listen to it.
Yeah, and I don't even know if anybody knows Dragnet or knows that I just mentioned Joe Friday, but but that's the perfect way to explain it. Or if you've seen Boggy Creek, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But unlike Boggy Creek, though, which is a straight-on faux documentary where there's interviews with people on camera and stuff like that, talking about the monster, and then they recreate their encounter with the monster and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Unlike Boggy Creek, this movie feels like an actual movie.
Yeah.
But it's got a narration slapped on top of it. So
yeah.
It makes it feel really offbeat. And like I said, it's part of its charm for me. Like, I would not take away the narration, but that's just me.
Not necessary. Not necessary at all. But anyway. Now, it's March 24th, 1946, 21 days later, and Norn, he works for the sheriff's department. He goes to talk to someone at the police department to see how many units they have out that night.
Yeah.
And he wants the police to send units to the Lovers Lanes to shoo the kids away. He says they need an okay from the chief before they can do that.
Yeah.
And Norm says it's fine. He just has a feeling.
Right. Old school police gumption. Nobody uses the word gumption anymore. Or integrity, I made a South Park reference. I'm sorry, everybody.
Integrity? I don't think integrity is a word.
Integrity, but it's a South Park. Anyway, now Andrew Prine, who plays Norman, I think he'd been in Grizzly before this, and he's an actual kind of a recognizable face amongst genre fans. Also, he was in what the fuck movie was that about witches, where he was like, I don't know. He also was in the old Wonder Woman, the 70s show. But anyway, now Prine, he wrote the last fifth of this film. He said, because it didn't have a fucking ending at all. It just kind of stops, which the movie kind of does still.
Yeah.
But it is an ending, as much as you can have an ending to this, because, the Phantom Killer or whatever his name was, he was never caught. So you couldn't have a conclusive ending, which is a weird complaint amongst people who don't like this movie. I will talk about it in a minute, but anyway,
because a lot of people have to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
A lot of people have to have closure.
Which is weird because the first Halloween didn't have closure.
But then there was more.
Right, but not at the time. That's why I'm saying, you guys have got to stop comparing it to other movies. Because just because you were born at a time where all these movies existed now and all their sequels doesn't mean they were exactly the same when the first ones were released.
Right.
But anyway, it was said that this movie was a joy to work on. Charles B. Pierce said, he had no problems or anything but there was weather problems where they were shooting because you had swamps and stuff. So of course you had that going on. But he said it was a pretty good movie and a pretty good shoot, and everybody did really good. I think that's another thing, is there is some actual good acting in this movie.
What?
I think so. Because we haven't got to Ben Johnson yet. And he's giving it his all in this movie.
I think
Brittany is glaring. I wish this was a video because Brittany's glare right now was daggers. There is some over-the-top acting. If you want to call it, what is this? Is it under the top? Like, I don't know. Anyway, let's get back to it before you get mad anymore.
and fall asleep. Anyway,
Gotta catch the phantom.
Buddy and Emma drive down a road, and Emma tells him not to because they might get stuck. Howard says it's fine, and they drive down there anyway.
Wait, is his name Buddy or Howard?
His name is Howard because she called him Howard.
Well, I thought his name was Buddy because in the supplemental material I watched it was Buddy, so I changed that first thing of yours in your notes to Buddy.
Stop changing my notes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, obviously there's
This is where we remember when we
Okay.
used to fight all the time?
Yes.
This is why. Because I'm going off of what I watch on the movie. You're going off of your knowledge in your brain, which is not always right.
It's not accurate half the time. And I even say that. I even say I can't trust my memory, but then here I am trusting my anyway. So I may have fucked up your notes there. I'm sorry. A little behind the scenes here with Night of the Horror.
It doesn't really matter. He's going to die anyway.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And he rots fast. We'll talk about it when we get to the dead body, but does he have maggots on him, or am I remembering that wrong?
I don't know.
I don't know. He looks like he's rotted, though. Anyway, we're moving on.
So Norm drives down to Lover's Lane himself to check on the roads, and he sees something, so he stops to get out. When he gets out, he hears gunshots, so he goes back to the car and calls for backup. He drives a little ways and finds a parked car. He goes to check it out and hears more gunshots. He calls the dispatch again and says that he thinks the people from the car have been abducted. So he runs to check things out and finds a dead body.
Which, by the way, like I said, looks rotted to me. But it's like,
I don't know.
What was the time frame? How long did it take him to get there? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Go ahead.
So he works further down, and he finds the dead woman tied to a tree with bite marks all over her. Then we see the Phantom get into a car, and Norm sees him too, and he's going to fire his gun at him, but he's too far away.
And this whole time you have the narrator. He's like, he was going to shoot his gun at him, but he was too far away. It's like, yes, we just saw.
Right.
We just saw this.
We know what happened.
I love it. But Bud Davis plays our Phantom here, and Davis was a stuntman and a stunt coordinator who worked on over 119 films, his last being Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards. And I believe he also worked on Forrest Gump. So there you go. You can somehow tie Forrest Gump to The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which would be an interesting combination if they had a crossover. Like Forrest had to hunt the Phantom. That would have been like Forrest Gump 3, wouldn't it? Forrest Gump 3, run harder.
That would have been the most boring movie in the whole world.
Come on, Lieutenant Dan, we gotta catch the Phantom. He wears a hood on his head.
Wow.
But anyway, this may come as a shock to most of you. But I find this movie legitimately scary. I know, it's surprising because I'm over here like cracking wise this whole time. But slashers never really frightened me. Like, they never have. I've never really been truly scared by a slasher movie, aside from maybe the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Or, you always have that one slasher that goes above and beyond and does get kind of spooky, but they never quite, got me, I never really got quite scared at them.
Right.
But Freddy Krueger was pretty scary to me when I was a kid. But anyway, it was mostly because I was raised on their sequels before seeing their first installments. Hell, for the first Friday the 13th movie I ever saw was the sixth one when I was like 5 or something. And that is when it hits peak joke material. So mostly I was always rooting for the killers. You find yourself doing that through slashers. I mean, hell, to this day, even when they try to make a new slasher, which I'm trying to think of the last really good slasher I saw that wasn't a sequel to an old slasher.
You haven't.
We just keep making sequels and nobody comes up with their own, sad day. But anyway, but the town that dreaded Sundown goes more the Halloween or Black Christmas route. The kills mixed with the exploitation and the unflinching views of some of these kills kind of freaked me out when I saw this for the first time. As far as the horror moments go, like I think this was a midnight movie marathon when I was younger, when I first saw this.
That makes sense.
And but what Pierce does here is he starts shaping those tropes of 1980s slashers without even knowing it, I feel like. Like two kids go out the lover's lane, probably to engage in some premarital fun, and out comes a mass killer to rain the murder on them. That's Friday the 13th.
Right.
Yeah. There's so many points of this movie where you're watching it and you're like, holy shit, this is this movie. This is what we get later. Hell, even the whole thing about the killer being one of them and being in the community, which wasn't really a big thing in slashers until about, later on. Mm-hmm. That's Scream. I mean, that right there, Scream.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So even the bag on this motherfucker's head it was inspired Jason in Friday the 13th Part 2 to wear that bag and stuff like that. So you can definitely see the little bits and pieces that really inspired slasher movies to come. And like I said, I don't think this movie gets quite enough appreciation for that. But I think the most frightening moments are when we see the killer's eyes. I don't know. His eyes scared the fuck out of me when I was younger. Bud Davis does some really good crazy eyes. Yeah. Like, I think that's what makes such a silly scene like that trombone scene. And you saw this. You saw this in a brightly lit room doing your notes and stuff, so it's a little different. But if you watch this in the dark as a little kid and stuff, and his eyes being like that with the trombone and everything, that shit's scary.
Me, I'm like, this is
You're
weird.
Like, okay, trombone. And of course, you've seen more awful stuff than this, so you just assumed the trombone was going somewhere.
Yes, I did.
You were like, what's he about to do to the trombone? I was like, no, it's not that. It's not that kind of movie.
They made it look like it, though.
Like, he's going to shove that somewhere. I don't want to see that.
Not something I want to see in my horror movies, but okay.
I still think I could really get my movie Forrest versus the Phantom off the ground. I think I even think, fucking Tom Hanks would be interested in you.
Well, he's not doing anything else.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, is he? I don't know.
Hollywood won't allow him to do anything else, I don't think. They even killed off his character in that Turner and Hooch show that they brought up on Disney Plus. They killed Tom Hanks' character off screen. Like, what the fuck? Why did we need him to die? Why couldn't it just been a new Turner and Hooch? Anyway, this is not that show.
Anyway, within 24 hours, all the guns in town got sold, and the locksmiths were called to put new locks, deadbolts, and chains on doors. There doesn't seem to be a motive, so everyone in town is scared. And during the day, everything ran as normal, but everyone dreaded Sundown.
Boom! They said the name. But so in reality, I think the true murders weren't connected at all. Besides the whole Lover's Lane idea, which got blasted into shit later in the crimes, because he started raiding people's houses. But law enforcement, they were working real hard to figure out just why people were being targeted. Right. And, during this time, right after World War II, you didn't have a lot of people on the streets in Texarkana, beating the paths or anything like that. So you just had little handfuls of deputies and stuff. But later on, they call in the Texas Rangers. And,
right.
And I think, honestly, the decision to call in Texas Rangers to help out probably made this case more famous than it probably would have been.
Oh, I agree.
It probably would have been just relegated to a series of unsolved murders in Texarkana that you stumble across and you're like, whoa, what?
That's true, because I was like, why? What?
Yeah.
Why is this popular? This shit happens in Oklahoma every day.
Oh God, the Phantom moved here. But what Pierce does here is he plays with the fact that the killer is among them. You know, like I said earlier, with Scream doing that.
Yeah.
You know, it could be anyone. That's the terror of this whole thing.
Grandma.
Are you the Phantom? I'm tired of these people coupling together. Because that's what happened. I mean, he was killing he was murdering couples. So it wasn't like motivated by sex or anything. Like,
Right.
even though in this movie they do that whole thing where they call him a sex maniac because he's biting folks. But, but they said, like, the parts I did read about the real Moonlight Murders were that it didn't seem like it was based on sex, even though I think at one point he kind of like sexually assaulted a girl with the pistol of his gun. But obviously they didn't show that.
Right.
Maybe there was some more symbolic in the trombone, but it wasn't motivated by sex. And if it was motivated by sex, why would he target couples? You know,
And
why
not
would
just
he?
women.
Yeah, why would he? Yeah,
Or men.
Yeah,
Whatever.
or just solo women or something like that. Because I
Yeah.
mean, that's not something a lot of these people do. They don't usually come up and target a couple with a man,
Right.
Somebody that could fight them back.
Right.
That's the thing. Unless he was just walking up shooting folks and that was it.
Right.
But
That'd be different.
Yeah, it was a weird series of murders that occurred. If you read into it, which, like I said, I just kind of skimmed it just to kind of get a feel for what was going on. But it's a very weird series of murders because it doesn't make any sense. Like, it's just some fucking crazy guy with a bag on his head. Like,
Maybe they got too close to maybe he was homeless and they got too close to his homelessness shelter.
But then he'd just be stabbing them, because it could be true. Like, they could have got a stabby hobo instead of a singing hobo.
Right.
You always want the singing hobo.
Not the stabby ones.
Singing
Unless you
about
have
the hobo life.
Unless you have a stabby singing one.
Ooh, now that's interesting. I'm gonna stab you on the rails.
Are we supposed to call them hobos?
I don't know. I'm just tired of everything being a slur, a term of endearment. Don't take the word hobo. That makes it sound fun. Like, that at least a hobo brings up. I think there's a difference between a hobo and a homeless person, though. Because when I say hobo, I always think about that guy with the knapsack on his back riding the rails.
Wouldn't that be a traveler?
No. I think if you're riding the rails, you're a hobo.
Or a train hopper.
That's true. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
Whatever. Anyway, at the sheriff's department, they call in the best criminal investigator because they have no leads and they need help. So Norm says he knows the person and says his name is J.D. Morales. And he's the living legend and the most famous ranger in the history of Texas. Excuse me?
Okay.
Okay, maybe for this time.
Okay, little history.
No.
And what are you going to say? Walker, Texas Ranger?
Yes.
Because Walker is not a real person.
Yes, he is.
Walker was not a real person.
Chuck Norris is real.
The eyes of a stranger. Unexpected danger. Something, where it lies.
Okay.
When the eyes of the ranger are upon you.
Walker is the best Texas Ranger, okay?
Oh, fuck.
He's the only one.
I got to level with y'all. I hate Chuck Norris, but I fucking love Walker, Texas Ranger. I used to watch that with my grandpa. Fucking Walker. Just karateing motherfuckers across the room. Anyway. Now, the character of J.D. Morales is loosely based on the real Texas Ranger Captain M.T. Lone Wolf Gonzalez. Lone Wolf because he was known for going into situations alone and putting down crime.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about like some of the last of the Wild West lawmen who took matters into their own hands,
Oh, because that's smart.
Yeah. Hey, he lived. He lived until he died of natural causes in a retirement home.
So he did shady shit.
The same retirement home he lived with his mother. That's how
Dang.
he got there. He was good. But he was the first American of Spanish descent to achieve captain in the Rangers. And after his retirement, he became the technical consultant on radio and television and movies, including a long-running 1950s radio show, Tales of the Texas Rangers, which, by the way, you can still find some of those floating around the internet. I suggest you got... I'm lame. Okay. Because, like, if you went through my podcast thing, you'd find the normal podcasts, the comedies, and the true crime podcasts. But then I also have a bunch of lame podcasts that I'm not sure I might be the one supporting these podcasts. Because one is just nothing but old radio shows. Okay. And of course, the guy who intros it is so funny because he just sounds like some kindly old man that might work in some basement. He's like, welcome to Old Fashioned Radio. Got a good one for you. Tales of the Texas Rangers from 1955. Just like, nice. All right. And you're in for a treat. And then I have Hot Pipes, which is a podcast about pipe organs.
What? You and 2.5 other people listen to that?
It's very interesting, you guys. The history and the songs from pipe organs are very interesting. But anyway, enough about my serial killer listening habits. Oklahoma native Ben Johnson plays Morales here, and he was mostly known for his work in westerns. You know, I think he was a double for fucking John Wayne at one point in his career. But you know, he was in the Wild Bunch where he played Tector Gorch, which, you know, a lot of people don't like to pull the trigger on a lot of these old westerns and stuff, but the Wild Bunch is the most violent western, like mainstream western I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
It is violent. But anyway, also though, for you slasher fans, you probably remember him from the movie Terror Train, where he played the kindly conductor Karn in that movie, and he does a wonderful job in that film too.
I don't remember that.
We'll do Terror Train one day. Did I ever tell you the tale of how Terror Train is my parents' favorite horror movie? Because that's like one of the that's one of the first ones they saw on their date. My dad still has a scar from the fucking claw wound my mom gave on his back when she got scared.
Oh my gosh.
But the funny thing was, if, like I said earlier, if the Texas Rangers never got involved in this case, it might not be as famous as it was today.
No.
Because you know, JD Morales, or the real Lone Wolf. I'm so bad at saying nicknames, but the real guy, he brought along his celebrity status to this, and that's what really, you know, Life magazine started coming in, and just a bunch of newspapers started coming and reporting it, and it became a national thing, you know.
Yeah, because they're like, oh shit, he's here, it must mean serious business. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the Texas Rangers are a colorful lot. You know, it's basically like Texas' own FBI. So a lot of the stuff that goes into them is real interesting. You know? So
Norm goes to pick up Morales at the train station, and there's press there, and they ask what his plan of action is, and he says he plans on catching or killing him, the Phantom.
When the eyes of a ranger are upon you.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Now, you did this. I have that theme song stuck in my fucking head now.
They said the fucking Texas Rangers, okay? It would have been in your head anyway.
Good point. It was the entire time. Yes. I wasn't being truthful. So, like, the entire time that he's on screen, I was like, Chuck Norris.
Oh my God. So they all go back to the station, and Morales says that things are going to be handled his way, and he expects their full cooperation. Uh-huh. He doesn't want the press to get in the way, and he wants to be the only one to give out information. So they make a task force. That's what I called it. I've been watching too much Dexter.
You have, yeah. We've been doing a whole Dexter rewatch before November when the new series comes out.
Yeah, and they make task force, and that's what I'm calling it.
I think that's the right word. I think you're using the right word.
Yeah, I know. I watched a lot of Dexter and Criminal Minds.
Oh yeah. You gotta add the Criminal Minds in there.
Yes. So they set up, and the guy that is going to drive them. What's his name? Benson.
Benson, yeah, AC Benson.
He forgets the keys inside, and he has to go back out and get go back in and get them. He is just the police force.
We go into fucking sitcom territory because they're even playing like the comedic music, like it's like, what the fuck happened?
So then he starts driving,
Mm-hmm.
and he is driving like a maniac. And even Morales is like, "You only got two speeds there." What did he say? Like, he didn't say full throttle, but like full throttle and stop. Or something. It was a little crazy.
Oh, well, like I said, I love the humor though. But so Benson here, who is known as Sparkplug, as we come to find out, that's his nickname. He's played by the director himself, Charles B. Pierce, and I believe he started having roles for himself in movies. I think the first one he did that with was The Bootleggers, but Sparkplug really was his nickname in real life because his constant energy and work ethic. If you look at Pierce's the movies he directed and he worked on, they're like one after the other because he was always working, and he would start a new movie right after completing another one. Like,
oh shit,
he was working, man. Now but this brings me to another point. The humor in this movie, we kind of talked about the whiplash effect, the themes, how the pacing is and stuff like that, but we go from horror to humor at an even quicker pace. Like I said,
yes.
You have the fucking music. Like it's like it makes it a very odd flick. All these elements combined. It is one of the I think this might be the weirdest movie we've watched for you, and we've watched Mandy.
That's not even that weird of a movie, though.
Yeah, I think because that whole movie was weird. In this movie, it's like unsettling weird because it's like, okay, this is supposed to be a true story. Why does it feel like we're not treating it with the seriousness it needs to be treated? Where did AC Benson come from? Because this is a complete work of fiction. There was no comic relief during the investigation.
There might have been.
That's true. You might have had a bumbling motherfucker. You always do on the police force.
In Texarkana. What else is there to fucking do there?
Oh, we just lost all our Texarkana listeners.
They don't like it there either, okay?
Most accurate podcast award. But now, like, how were you feeling about the humor and stuff like that when it hit? Because I mean, okay, first of all, it's 1970s funny. Like, it's that really dry humor that we get hit with. Really, like, it's almost like fucking Smokey and the Bandit type humor,
Yes.
Like, it's just goofy.
I could have gone my whole life without seeing this movie.
It's a timepiece. It's not something that I'm like, you have got to watch this movie or anything like that to anybody. But it's definitely, it is its own thing, man. It is. Yes. I just find it all highly enjoyable. But every time this character appears on screen, it's basically the director himself becoming our escort into hilarity.
Yes. He's like, oh, we need to laugh. Get Benson in there.
It's just so funny. Why would you look at like a true story and be like, man, you know what this would need? It's just so glum. We need a comic relief.
No, it wasn't that it was glum. It was fucking boring.
That's probably what he was doing. He was like, we need to jazz this up a bit. And it's like, you putting comic relief into this true story?
Yes.
Yes, I fucking am.
Because it was so boring.
I don't find it boring. I think this is out of all the movies where I'm like, oh, okay, you hated it, cool, and stuff like that. I think the reason why people hate this one perplexes me. I think it's because I don't find it boring at all, which is really weird. Like, because people have explained why it's boring to them, and it makes sense. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I just don't. And I'm like, what the like, but anyway.
It's because you're boring.
It might be. I watched 4 hours of dark and glum superheroes with that fucking Snyder cut. So, and I had a damn good time. So it does kind of say something about me.
Right. So police from all over come to help out and find this killer. And even the FBI is involved now. Mm-hmm. And the captain... Morales...
The captain?
I don't know. Morales set up curfews and demanded an exhaustive level of vigilance.
That's right.
And after dark, the town was ghostly except for the patrolling cars. They worked day and night and searched every lead. Then there were vigilantes coming out of the woodwork.
Hell yeah. I mean, you know, round up a posse to go get this motherfucker.
Yeah. So almost 21 days after the last killing, Norm tells Morales about the 21 date pattern. The captain says he thinks Norm is right and decides to set up decoys on Lover's Lane roads. Sparkplug, the terrible driver, volunteers to be one of...
Sorry.
He volunteers to be one of the decoys. So a bunch of men show up at the station dressed as women and carrying guns. And the captain goes over what they need to do and to stay safe and alert.
And, yes, we get a lot of men in dress humor, which is...
Yes.
But goddamn, back on Benson, like when you're introduced to this character, he's on the phone threatening a child.
I was an old lady, I thought.
No, she's having him tell her like grandson like what he's doing wrong. It is wild, man. I don't know what what he was thinking of when putting this in there. But again, the humor, it just comes out of you in odd moments. But I think it kind of does help break up the scenes a bit. It does give you something to kind of latch into, because a lot of this is hitting like police procedure 101.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
By the way, though, during this scene when the cops are coming in dressed as women, and we meet one of the officers who looks like Porkins from Star Wars, this big old fat dude with a giant mustache.
Yeah.
This guy he quickly becomes one of my favorite characters in this fucking movie.
And he plays like this D role.
Yeah. And it's like we hold on him for a long time while he's laughing at fucking Benson in a dress, and he's like, he had to look. He only had to look in the back of his closet. That's where that dress was. That's funny, huh, guys? It's just like, what the fuck is happening?
Is this the guy that's in the car with him later?
Yeah, and it just gets the biggest fucking giggle while he's mumble joking under his fucking giant mustache.
Right. It's the mustache.
It is, because he looks like a fat version of the Monopoly Man. And he's red-faced and giggle. I don't know. It's just so funny to me.
So Sparkplug and another man are being Sparkplug and another man are being decoys, and the man is teasing him and grabbing his fake boobs.
You should call him Porkins.
Porkins?
Anyway. I don't know if anybody knows
I never
what the
mention
fuck
him
that
again,
is.
so it doesn't really matter.
Damn it.
So there's a prom going on in town, even though there's a curfew, whatever. And there's a ton of kids there, obviously.
But when we get introduced to this prom, these women are like pouring alcohol into their beverages and stuff, and it's just like, why this movie?
It's prom.
But it doesn't seem like it's this movie. And why are the older ladies doing it? Why is it not the teenagers?
I don't know. I didn't even look at them.
Brittany was checked out by this point.
I don't know.
Like, let's just get to the next murder scene, please.
Yes. So Morales says he wants extra patrols on the roads when the prom lets out. So the prom lets out, and the band is putting their things away, and one of the couples leaves, and the girl plays the band. She plays the trombone.
Here comes the trombone, everybody.
Kind of. It'll be here.
Okay, you can hear a minute. I'm excited.
So they leave, and the guy wants to go parking in their favorite spot, and the girl is reluctant to do that, and because of the killer, and he says, it's in the middle of town, we'll be fine.
It doesn't look like the middle of town, though. Like, this is...
I know, right?
This is definitely the woods, guy.
Yes.
There is some... Like I said, there's some really good cinematography in this movie. Like, I don't think it gets enough credit for that, because they do a good job shooting this movie. I mean, that can't be a complaint you have. I think they do an accurate job at shooting a movie.
They shot the movie, okay.
I don't know. There is some cool little... upward shots with the lighting and stuff. Like, I don't know. It's hard to explain because I'm not going into film school. But anyway.
Thank you.
Everybody needs to thank me for that because I could. remember when we watched fucking Blue Velvet? I was like, yeah, but the feeling is what you got to get across with the cinematography and the music and the swells of the. You're like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. But anyway, this movie never quite reaches the terror level as, say, Texas Chainsaw, when it, which came out years prior to this. But when the action happens, things get pretty tense. I think maybe, speaking of tense, they don't really get tense. I think maybe that's what's missing from this movie. That might have made it a little better for casual viewers like you and stuff, to where if it had a lot of tension in it, I think that might make it a little better. Yes. But like with these little scenes with prom and people joking around and farting around in dresses and shit and Porkins laughing, it ruins any kind of tension you might have had. Yes. Like, because I mean, through the movie, you do feel the Phantom is always around. Yeah. They do a good job at making that, but shooting in the South, they said was kind of different. It was a different thing to do back in the day because, like, the cinematographer said the locals will be like, yeah, of course you can shoot here and stuff, like you can make your movie here, shoot in my yard and whatever, use my land and stuff like that. But then they'd be like, but you got to promise me you got to eat dinner with me later. It's just like, God damn. Yes. Like, that sounds awesome. You'd love it. What, I got to eat?
We made homemade biscuits. I'm there.
All right, hang on.
Man, if some little old lady made me biscuits and gravy and invited me to her house, and it's like a 5-mile fucking drive up her fucking driveway, I wouldn't think twice.
I know. And that's how we would get murdered. Yeah. Like some psycho killer would be like, I made biscuits and gravy.
No, it'd have to be a little old Southern lady.
Oh, not me.
But then her basement living son comes up and murders everybody. And she's like, oh,
that's just Earl.
My precious little Earl.
Our precious son. Well, can I finish my biscuits and gravies first?
My biscuits and gravy are delicious.
But that's how I would get murdered, is by some creepy guy offering barbecue. I think the South is really confusing to people who don't live here. Yes. Like, because we're almost South. We're kind of the bridge between South and North. We're kind of like not South, but we are.
Midwestern?
Yeah. We're not South.
We're like smack dab in the fucking middle.
Yeah, we're the fucking belly button of America. But
the sweaty, nasty belly
button that smells.
Welly button.
The welly button. Well, what the fuck is wrong with my speech? But I think that confuses people with like some of the things we do down here. Like, yeah, like for the most, well, not now. Nowadays, you'd get shot for trying to shoot a movie on someone's land. But right, those kind of things existed when I was younger, where people would like invite each other over for dinner and shit, and there was no big deal about it. Right. And by the way, you guys, just a little tip: if someone says "bless your heart" down here,
it's an insult.
They're calling you dumb.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway,
that is an insult.
But anyway, also the cinematographer on this fucking movie, James W. Robertson, he had a broken foot, so he was shooting with a broken foot. By the way, and he said he went through like several casts because of the rain and shit they had to do.
Oh, okay. Do you need your foot?
I think so, to shoot a good. I mean, you're the cinematographer. You got to get those key frames and shit.
They need their feet for that?
I don't. No, you to
don't
walk
they need
with
their
the camera.
Hands? He couldn't sit in a chair and do it?
Well, yeah, he probably did.
What is that a big deal? It's just his foot.
I don't know. It's a neat fact.
Not really. Now, if you told me you had 2 broken arms and 2 broken wrists or something, then I'd be like, oh, shit. He broke his foot. Okay.
The man was just a torso and he shot this entire movie. Like, whoa.
Okay.
Brittany gets tired of my little facts like this sometimes because I'll just blurt them out. This is the thing. This is living with me because you'll be watching a movie with me that I've seen a million times and I'm just blurting out random facts. It's like, oh, to get that uniform right, they had to like go to the special tailor and shit, and they had to search like in New York City to get a special ass.
Well, you turned on Suicide Squad. I watched 4 seconds of Suicide Squad, and you're already telling me shit that I don't give a fuck about. I was like, "What is that thing?" And you were like, "It's what was that thing?"
Weasel.
And then and then you went into something, and then I was like, "Yeah, cool. Good night, bye." Like, I don't give a fuck. I'm not watching the movie, first of all, and if I am watching the movie, I'm not watching the movie to listen to this bullshit. Because if I wanted to know these things, I would just watch things about that.
I feel like
I would look it up.
I feel like people who probably hate our podcast, that's their exact argument.
It's probably true.
Oh, back to the movie.
We just went from biscuits and gravy
to fucking bullshit.
Anyway.
This is great.
I mean, there's nothing to talk about here, so. Oh my gosh. So Norm and the captain are driving around and they think that nothing is going to happen because it's getting later and later. Mm-hmm. Norm says the only difference is that it's not raining this night and the other nights it was. And the captain says that the moon might be too bright for him.
There's a lot of little things that they don't really explore here that were in the real case about like the 21-day cycle. And then also like there's a lot of stuff. There was a lot of talk about how he killed on the moon schedule and stuff like it. Like I said, it was just this killer is fucking weird and creepy. And, you know, it kind of along the same lines the Zodiac killer was, you know, just really weird and mysterious and creepy.
Right.
Like, it's very strange.
Yeah. So the couple stop and park, and why are the only thing that these kids are doing when they're fucking parking is sleeping?
Well, maybe because they're boring ass prom where they had to stop and pray.
They're not even, and they did stop and pray at prom. That was kind of weird.
Let us pray.
They're not even making out.
They're just fucking sleeping on each other.
They're not even making out.
That's as hardcore as this town could get.
There was no boob touches. There was nothing.
We see a guy though earlier in the movie go down on his girl or try to go down on his girlfriend.
He did not. He was just.
I swear he was going down.
No, he was just laying there.
He wasn't going downtown.
No,
I feel like he was. I don't know.
No, he was not. He tried to put his arm around her and she said no, so he laid his head in her lap.
That is fucking weird.
Yes, they're not even making out. There's no kissing
Brittany
in this movie.
Brittany, I think, was so bored watching this that she was begging for a hardcore sex scene.
I was. I would have taken the trombone sex scene. Okay.
Oh God.
I would have taken the trombone rape. Okay.
Oh, trombone rape. I could not. That's too silly to have a rape scene with a trombone. That's not.
Have you watched the other parts of this movie?
Yeah, but trombone rape, that's where I think I draw the line, man.
Oh my God.
It's just too silly to have a rape scene with.
Anyway, so they go to leave because the girl needs to be home. And then they see the Phantom behind the car. Or we see the Phantom behind the car. Right. They drive a little way, or they like back up the car. Mm-hmm. And he pops up on the side of the car. He gets the door open and the car starts going around in circles while he tries to get inside. So he's like hanging onto the door and the car's like spinning. I was like, oh shit.
I think that's
talent.
What he was thinking too. He was like, oh fuck.
Yes.
I didn't expect you to drive off shit. I should have pulled the cords.
Yes. So the Phantom ends up pulling the guy out and the girl is still in the car and it crashes into the trees because her dumbass, she doesn't even fucking scoot over to hit the fucking brake. Damn. She just lets it fucking drive into the woods. Whatever. She's dumb. I'm gonna die on this hill. Okay. So the Phantom beats the guy, and then the girl runs off. The Phantom chases her and ends up carrying her back to the car, or the area where the car is. Yeah. He ties her to a tree, and the guy gets up and tries to run away, but the Phantom shoots the guy, and he dies. Then the Phantom finds the girl's trombone, ties a knife to the end of it, and blows into it and stabs her a couple of times, like 3 times, until she's dead.
I thought it was scary at the time when I saw this. Was this not scary to you? I just thought
no,
because there's no music in it. I don't know.
No, this was not scary.
This was not scary.
He had to take the time to tie this knife to this trombone, okay?
Well, he does take his sweet ass time too.
Yes. And the thing is, when you blow into a trombone, it doesn't make the slide move. You have to move.
He was doing that.
I know.
He was making the slide come out.
I know. So what was the point of blowing into it? He wasn't even making the trombone noise.
He's thorough? I don't know. Maybe he didn't know how to do the lip thing, where you got to put your lips together and buzz, because you don't actually just blow right into
He's wearing a hood.
Well, he didn't think about that, but he was committed to the act there, so he had to just keep going. He was like, no, I already got this far. I tied the knife to the thing.
He should have knifed her in the vagina, okay?
Good. Brittany really wanted some sick shit to happen in this movie. I'm so sorry. But when you talk about this with anyone who loves this movie, when you talk about it to anybody who loves this movie, the 2 scenes that always stick out in their mind are the home invasion later and that cornfield. And this over the top, this is just pure exploitation. The trombone stabbing.
You know why?
Why?
Because these are the only good scenes in this fucking movie. Those are the only scenes in this movie.
Do I even need to ask what your thoughts were at the end of this episode? But anyway, it's comical, but also gives you, I don't know, I think it's uncomfortable watching this. Like,
why? There was no rape.
Damn. What is it with you and rape on this episode?
Why was it not? I mean, why was it uncomfortable?
It's just, I think it's the whole thing about knowing that people actually died. Like, that this is a real thing. Like, he did kill some girl who played the trombone. He didn't kill her with her trombone.
Right.
But he really did kill someone. So the act of, like, making it comical, it makes you really uncomfortable. I don't know. It makes me very uncomfortable knowing that a real person died, and we're not making fun of it. That's not what Charles B. Pierce is doing. He's not making fun of it or making light of it at all. But it's very over the top and exploitive. And I don't know. It's just a real dirty feeling you get. And I love movies that make me feel off and make me feel kind of almost disturbed a little. I think it's a little disturbing. I think if it wasn't based on a true story, like they didn't try to fully base it on the true killings, I think it wouldn't make me feel that way at all. But knowing that, it's a little different. It's like if they fucking did a 9/11 movie, right? I'm trying to think of a modern tragedy that everybody knows of. It's like if they did a 9/11 movie and they had a joke scene where, like, the window washer turns around and sees the plane coming and he's like, "Oh no, I almost retired," and then bam, it'd be like that. It's where, like, that scene would make you feel very bad.
But to me,
because I'm not saying this is scary. To when I was a little kid, yes, this was very frightening.
Right.
But it's not scary to me now. It's just kind of disturbing in a, this is funny, oh no, someone actually died, like, kind of way,
But I think the funniness of it and the odd nature of it disconnects me from that realness of it. And so I don't even think about that with this movie.
But yeah, I get what you mean. I get what you. I can understand.
So I didn't see it that way. So this was stupid.
I don't know. And like I said, the scene doesn't, like, give me the odd off feeling like some movies do. Like I Spit on Your Grave or anything like that.
Right.
But it comes very close to that for me.
For
it
you,
comes very close to that.
For me, no. And you know what it could be? Is I'm so numb to true crime.
That could be it too. Like, because that's something to take into account when you watch stuff like this, is that us as a society are very numb to it. I don't.
Right.
I listen. I don't think I'm very numb to it like everybody else is.
Right.
And so maybe that's why I appreciate this scene a little bit more.
I watch or I listen to true crime podcasts and go to sleep. So
true. But
because I'm a psychopath. Okay.
It's okay. We both are in our own way. Like I said, I drive around a van and I was listening to the Carpenters today. But anyway, this scene comes, like I said, very close to kind of being that disturbing quality that I love. But Charles Pierce's goal, though, was to make you feel bad with these murders and attacks. You know, he wasn't trying to make a joke about this. I mean, I think even he said he kind of went overboard with this trombone scene, but, you know, he said it works because at the time, because that's something to take account for, too, is that we are a different audience now.
Yes.
We are numb to true crime and stuff like that. We are numb to all these slasher movies and stuff. And I think when you watch this movie, you have to take what it would have been like to see this in 1976. You know, it is quite different than what you were seeing in most of your horror movies.
Yeah.
And so like, he did say he kind of went overboard with it, but he said when the audience watched this, you could have heard a pin drop after the scene was over. People were very shaken by the scene, you know, so I think that's something else to kind of consider.
I am a horrible person.
We both are horrible people. but you know, he accomplished these kind of scenes, these suspenseful scenes. And when I call them suspenseful scenes, it's the horror parts of this movie, like the real horror parts. He kind of accomplished these scenes the way they feel and stuff, because he would have, when he'd shoot these scenes, he'd have all the non-essential cast and crew leave the set. And so he would just be with the essential people, and he would not have them talk to each other while they're doing the scene. So under his direction, you know, these people are just doing these actions and stuff and not really knowing what the other one's thinking at the time.
Oh.
You know, so it is kind of, because you do kind of get some real good reactions, you know, like we said about the screams and stuff.
Right.
And everybody's reactions to what's going on it doesn't feel hokey.
Right.
Like, I think that's one of the pluses about this movie is during the murders and stuff, it doesn't feel hokey. Even, I mean, trombone, of course, that's silly, but you know, it feels like how you might react to these situations. I think the person, you know what disappoints me though? She could have screamed a little better when she's being stabbed by the trombone knife.
Could she though?
I don't know. She kind of acted like she liked it. That was kind of weird. I don't know why. I don't know why that's the negative. She could have screamed a little better. We're horrible people, but Dawn Wells, you know, talking about the acting, she has an incredible scene coming up later. She's part of the house invasion scene. She's the woman in that scene, and she really. Well, you know what? Most of the people who acted in this movie relied on during these scenes was their emotions and stuff like that to get through them. You know, so that they really had to go with kind of a raw kind of acting ability and stuff like that.
So they're just raw dogging it.
There you go, tromboner.
Okay. So she plays two people in this movie then?
No. I should have mentioned that when we actually get to the scene. But Dawn Wells, I think, only worked on this movie for like 4 days or something. But she plays the woman in the house later who has to crawl through the cornfield. Which
no, I understand that, but you said, "Oh, okay, never mind."
Yeah. I should have waited. I'm blurting out.
It is two different
things.
people. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, listener. You have to
You
deal with me
me.
just blurting out random facts during this fucking podcast. It's so funny when you actually look at our notes, because here's a little secret tip for you podcasters out there. You need to write your episodes.
Oh, yeah.
To a point, because we haven't, what we work off of is a basic outline.
Yeah.
But like, if you look at my notes and stuff, it's not what I say. Like, half the time I'm just blurting shit out.
And mine has to be because I go off the movie.
Right.
Well, I do improvise a little bit.
Yeah.
So the next day, Morales wants to know why there wasn't anyone checking on this road. And he says that nobody is trying hard enough, and they're going to find evidence at this scene no matter what.
Even if we have to sift through every grain of sand in this here. It's just like, yeah, you might as well. Like,
I mean, you ain't got nothing else to do.
I feel like that's how Brittany was saying. He's like, Brittany's like, oh, great. Now we're going to get sand sifting scenes.
Yes. So the press from the big news organizations show up to report on this phantom killer, and they raised $8,000, which is from 1946, $8,000 is equivalent to 2021's $111,000.
That's very interesting.
And it was a reward for anyone that might know something about the Phantom Killer. Well, and be able to positively ID him. Yeah. So Morales keeps getting asked about what he thinks about what Dr. Kress, the prison psychologist, has to say about the Phantom, and he's like, I don't know yet.
Yeah, they're going to go have dinner with the psychologist. So I mentioned earlier about how I saw this during a midnight movie marathon, and I thought I'd really like to bring those up for a second.
Okay.
Because and most people I'm sure saw this, like, that are older than me, probably saw this at the drive-in where it was most popular and stuff like that.
Right.
But I saw this one time on one of the midnight movie marathons, and like literally at midnight or like 11 o'clock, some TV stations would begin showing horror movies, sometimes kung fu movies and action films, depending on what station and what day. But not ones hosted by anyone. I think that's important to mention. It wasn't like a horror host hosting these movie marathons. It would just literally just start kicking in, just movies.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like it was their into programming kind of thing.
Yeah.
Before infomercials really started kicking in, But anyway, so whatever was on before, like the news or whatever shitty sitcom that was showing reruns, that would end and the movies would just start playing. You had no intro or anything to these. So it was kind of a surprise as to what would come on. It was very nice. From midnight to at least 3 a.m., you'd be watching movies. It's how I got introduced to a ton of these obscure horror and drive-in features like today's film. I remember as a kid, it was like 1 a.m. and The Town That Dreaded Sundown came on. And I think before that, it was Return of the Living Dead.
Oh, nice.
So I went from Return of the Living Dead, which is pretty much a comedy. I mean, really. It's a little spooky, but it's a comedy. To The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which, like I said, it may not be scary to some of us today, being so numb to this kind of thing. But to me as a little kid, this was fucking scary. Like, this was frightening because they're like, this is true. Only the names have been changed. This motherfucker's still out there. You scared, Lee? It's like, oh, God, yes. I don't know why I was a hairdresser when I was younger, but anyway, I'm so scared. but today, Junior. But The Town That Dreaded Sundown, of course, came on.
You did it again.
Yes, I did. And of course, I'm the only one up with my popcorn, orange soda, and my parents' old wood paneled TV. And like I said, this scared the fuck out of me. And I think I'm one of the few who doesn't take those experiences for granted. Everybody's stuck on the whole like Blockbuster video stores and stuff like that. That's usually the nostalgia of choice for some of the movie fans and stuff like that. But I don't think enough talk goes into the times you would sit on your fucking shag rug watching horror movies late at night. Like yes. Those were fun times, man. Those were very important times of my childhood because I wouldn't be the weird antisocial person I am today without them. But so my days consisted during the summer, of course, because I had no bedtime during the summer. So my days consisted of playing outside with my friends, then dinner, and movies late at night. We didn't have cable until my teens, so this was the basic rabbit ears stations that you could get. Remember the old rabbit ears before the digital antennas took off nowadays? Yeah. I had so many of those nights, just a little creepy fat kid staying up way too late to be healthy and absorbing movies. You'll hear, I don't know, I think, you hear a lot of talk about how nostalgia is a poison. You hear about that a lot. Like,
really?
We're too stuck in nostalgia and remember this kind of things. It does kind of poison movies that come out nowadays, kind of like the new Star Wars trilogy, where it was basically every one of those movies was basically a, hey, remember what happened in the old movies kind of thing. It does kind of, sometimes it sticks you in the past and won't let you leave with nostalgia. But I think sometimes, especially with horror fans, I think a lot of horror fans can really empathize with this. The fact that like the nostalgia that we hold on to is a comfort zone.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You know, when things get real rough in life and stuff, you just kind of think you can kind of like put on a movie and you're right back in that little shitty living room on the blue shag carpet and the wood panel TV, you know, just enjoying horror and kind of the worries of the world pass away. So I think that's a good kind of nostalgia.
I agree. Yeah. Do I have any of that? No.
I'm so sorry.
Because you know what I had?
What?
Sex.
Well, Lee wasn't having sex.
I know.
As a little kid, you had sex?
No.
Oh, I'm talking like 7, 8.
Oh, shit. No, but you still did this into your teen years, don't lie.
Oh, yeah. I just, then there was masturbation on the computer at that point.
So you had a horror movie playing and you were masturbating too.
Yeah, who needs women? Or men. I was just jerking off and watching horror movies. Not at the same time, though. I'm not a psycho.
Not
Okay, there was some
until
Linnea
you were
Quigley
older.
things where you could pause it and you could get a good rub out, but that's just.
Anyway, is it my turn?
It is. Let's get back to the movie.
So the doctor comes to have lunch with Morales and the task force. And the doctor says that the Phantom is a sadist motivated by a strong sex drive. He's between 35 and 40 and highly intelligent. He says the odds are at least 2 to 1 that he'll ever be caught. He says the manhunt gives him pleasure to make him feel important. By the way, Criminal Minds vibes right here.
Yeah. So this is the scene you like the most.
Yes.
I think out of all the scenes in this movie, but not counting the humor, the comedy scenes and the actual killings, I think this is the strongest scene of the film.
Oh, yeah. Because it gives some kind of explanation. And you have somebody that's actually talking.
And it's kind of gripping. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
He says that the Phantom knows exactly what is going on, but no one knows about him. Morales asks why the Phantom bites, and the doctor says for sexual satisfaction. The doctor says that he is insane, but not in a normal sense. He could be living a normal life and could even be a prominent citizen in the town. Morales asks why he hasn't taken any money from his victims when he could have, and the doctor says that that's not his motive. He does these things to please himself in some way. The doctor thinks that the Phantom might go into hiding again, and as they continue to talk, we see someone's shoes as they get up from the table, and we realize these are the Phantom shoes.
Yeah.
So he was listening to their conversation the whole time.
Yeah, and what I love about the scene, like I said, it was really gripping. And when you see that, you realize, because while you're watching this scene, there's someone at a table behind them. So the whole time, the killer's right there. And that's why I said that's a very smart scene.
Yeah.
Like, it's very good. Back on the exploitation angle of this movie for a minute. The 70s aren't the happy-go-lucky time you and I saw on that 70s show. People sitting around a pot circle smoking weed. I mean, that happened, but out in the real world, it wasn't necessarily that fun. Speaking about nostalgia earlier, it is kind of funny how we hold on to the good memories and we don't necessarily talk about the bad memories when it comes to like decades we like to look back on. Like the 50s, we don't ever talk about the pedophilia that is in songs or the rapey vibes everybody had going on. The 80s, we don't talk about, we don't necessarily dwell on the AIDS crisis when it comes to our nostalgia of the 80s or the pure hell people were going through in the 1980s. And the 70s is the same way, Films of the 1970s, like any decade, were reflective on what was going on in society at the time. We talked about how good horror keeps one foot in fiction and one in reality when it comes to the fears,
Right.
We talked about that on our gimmick episode. And while this movie's setting is the late 40s, it's a timepiece, but it very much is still a reflection on the 70s. After decades of post and pre-war monster flicks, during the 50s and most of the early 60s, things were getting weird come the 70s.
Yes.
And I think that's really reflective in your horror movies because most of the fear in these movies of the 70s and stuff, a lot of your early splatter and exploitation flicks mostly depicted amoral individuals at odds against typical society, dismantling tradition, the traditional view of how a person should act and how they should be. You had your biker flicks and all those kind of movies. The 70s was going through the negatives with Vietnam, the counterculture, and the end of the free love movement with the Manson murders in 1969, which the Manson murders really did kind of end that whole idea of peaceful and loving hippies and stuff like that. Because here you had a commune. Basically, the Mansons were... the Manson family was a commune of murderous hippies.
Right.
Yeah, so it kind of ended that idea of the free love era. Now another thing that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on, but I heard this on one of these true crime analysts and stuff, like the people that research, why serial killers were so prominent in the 70s and 80s and part of the 90s. And one of the theories was like that free love era kind of burnt a lot of people on sex, because during the 60s and stuff, whenever, but not all of the free love era means it was all promiscuous sex, but a lot of it was, you had people leaving marriages and stuff to go be free and be who they wanted to be and stuff like that. But you also had people who weren't that way. And so they got shoved to the side. And so like the views on sex changed over time, and I think that's why we go from, you see in the 60s and stuff like that, where sex was seen, it seemed like sex was more liberal back then. And then when you start hitting into the 70s, sex is seen as kind of dirty, and it starts getting more and more prude until, technically it hasn't stopped getting more prude because look at today.
Oh, yeah.
I think out of all the decades, I think we're the most prude we've ever been.
Oh my God.
I have to say it. Things are getting a little better, but I really do feel that way. That's my opinion. But anyway, the 70s with the horror and stuff like that, you had a lot of your villains and stuff in horror movies went from these monsters that were created from nuclear war and stuff like that into regular people. Like you either had the supernatural inhabiting humans, or people were it was the outsider that turned into the villain. The hippie turned into the villain. Look at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The hitchhiker in that movie is a Vietnam veteran who's a hippie. So most of your horrors dealt with these people, either the outsiders.
Yeah, the weird kids.
Yeah.
And they're tired of getting picked on, and then they kill people. And so like most of your horror movies dealt with people either wandering into the outsider territory, or the outsiders coming to them in home invasions and stuff like that. That's where most of your fears lied in the 70s. This movie takes it a little different, because instead of the outsider, it's the insider. It's the person in the community. And I think that's what it does a little smarter than some of the movies around this time. I guess so.
Yeah.
Smarter? I don't know.
But like I said earlier, Scream is really the only other slasher that you can kind of, because I don't believe this movie is a slasher. I don't treat it that way. But if you wanted to compare it to any other slasher, it'd be Scream, because Scream took the idea that this movie puts out, that there is someone in this town offing people for who knows why, and who is it? It's kind of a whodunit within a slasher movie.
Right.
And I think that's what Scream took and propelled up to the top. Other movies were doing it around this time. I'm not saying Scream's the only other movie, but if you wanted to compare, you're still comparing apples and oranges though.
Right.
Like I said, you cannot compare this movie to any other movie. It doesn't make sense to do so.
No, it doesn't. Because all the other movies are not so boring. Anyway, a man named Rainbow is telling a story at the police station, and he says that he's scared.
They make it a point to make sure Rainbow is scared. Even like Ben Johnson's like, and you're still scared, aren't you?
Yeah.
Still scared now, right?
Yes.
Yes, I don't know why that's relevant, but yes, I am still scared.
So Rainbow had gotten asked by a man to take him down the road to put gas in his car. He gave the man a ride, and the man said it was only like 2 miles down the road, But Rainbow kept driving, and he's like, wait, where are we going?
Yeah.
And the man pulls a gun on him and told him to keep driving to Lufkin. The man says he already killed 5 people in Texarkana, and he isn't afraid to kill another. So Rainbow took him to Lufkin, and when they got there, the man took Rainbow's billfold, took out his driver's license, and says that he knows what kind of car he drives, where he lives, and if he tells anyone, he will kill him. And Morales says that he will put a police car at his home 24 hours a day.
Which, back on people's complaints about this movie, I understand your complaints.
Right.
Your complaints are making sense to me. But the most common complaints when it comes to this movie is the emphasis on the town instead of the Phantom. The Phantom really technically isn't on screen that much in this movie.
Right.
The horror scenes are pretty slim, but the feeling is what Pierce was going for, I believe. The feeling of what it must have been like during something like this. It's bleak. How terrified everybody must have been. And then you have the thought of like people using the Phantom killings to kind of like pull off crimes and stuff, saying they did it and stuff. And just people who want to be famous,
Ugh, that's so stupid.
Yeah. That does happen. People do want to be famous. And so they pretend that they're the killer, And so I think that's really what he was going for. I don't think this movie is supposed to be fun with the killer or anything like that. And that's one complaint I've heard is it's really weird because, okay, a few complaints I've heard is it's trying to capitalize on the true story.
Right.
Which maybe, but I don't even feel like it. Because I feel like if he was trying to capitalize on a true story, he would have chosen a more well-known story. Mm-hmm. To me, it feels the opposite. Like I said, would we even know this case if Texas Rangers got involved? Another complaint was that nobody has any charisma in this movie. I don't know. I think the whole movie has its own charisma, but it's not what you feel like it is. I don't know. The complaints are really weird. Like I said, it's supposed to be more of a realistic approach to this because I think people forget that we're supposed to be watching kind of a documentary. It's not supposed to be a straight up movie. But it feels like it.
Yes.
That's the problem. But also, the killer in this movie, that's something I'd like to talk about for a second. The killer is not this mastermind, unstoppable force like your Freddys and your Jasons and your other slashers that came after. He's quite human. Often he reacts very abruptly, and he's just this brutal guy. He just goes around killing people. There's nothing really deep about him.
No.
And he doesn't even succeed in killing every one of his victims. So he's not superhuman. He kind of just has the element of surprise. In fact, during that earlier scene at the car, he doesn't even have that because he has to hang off the door because they start taking off. Right. But to me, this movie isn't supposed to be about the killer himself. I really think this whole entire movie is just about the town.
And how dumb they are?
Maybe, yes. But you know what I mean? Like, it feels like this whole movie is just about the setting.
Yeah.
Like, it's not really supposed to be about the Phantom. And I think that's what really throws people off. It throws a lot of these people off because, like I said, you get a lot of comparisons to Halloween.
It's not like that, though.
Yeah, because in this movie, in every episode of Night of the Horror File, I always like to get, people's responses of people who don't like this movie. Because, like I said, every response is valid. And I don't know, if you hate this movie and you love this movie, those are both valid responses to this. But I get confused as to why people hate it.
Hate's a strong sentiment for it.
Yeah, because I'm not talking about not digging it or disliking it, being like, I could have done without the movie.
Right.
Or anything like that. But people seem to really loathe this fucking movie. And that's what's odd to me. That's what kind of perplexes me a bit. Because,
that's weird to me too, because
why are you so upset? Because it seems like the people, and of course I only watched 3 videos, so I'm not saying everybody compares it to Halloween, but the 3 I did, they really went into the comparisons between Halloween because they were all stuck on like why Michael Myers, which this is dumb because this kind of tells me they didn't even watch Halloween, right? Because they're like, well, Michael Myers has a more human quality to him. That's what makes him scary. And I was like, No, what makes Michael Myers scary is he's a shell of a human being. Michael Myers is scary because he's what a human being looks like, but that's not a human being.
Right.
Like, that's why they call him the Shape.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's what he's called in the credits. But that's the thing. So just fucking stop it.
Just stop.
Stop comparing it to any other movies, especially Halloween, because like I said, it's dumb.
Right. So, Morales is in the car with Sparkplug and Norm, and he says he wants to set up a meeting with the kids that were first attacked. Then they hear something over the radio. There's a suspect at a cafe that is armed. So they speed to the cafe, and when they get there, the suspect has already gotten in his car and drove away. Sparkplug ends up getting stuck during the chase, and the other officers catch up to the man first. Sparkplug ends up getting them unstuck, but comes in hot and ends up ramping the car into a pond.
By the way, again, like it feels like not this movie, guys, because it feels like it goes right to Dukes of Hazzardville. Yes. Because you get this long slow-mo scene of the car going, like, all they needed was like the whoa.
Yes. And it's funny because he gets out of the car and he was like, who didn't put the sign saying that the road ends or something like that? And they're like, what?
It's just, like I said, just the random comedy moments. Yes. Just, like I said, it's part of the movie's charm.
So the man that they caught is named Eddie. He says he got scared and that's why he drove away from them. He says that he's from New Orleans and he just got here today. Norm says that the car he's driving is stolen. And more police roll up and Rainbow's in the car with them. And he says that's the man he gave a ride to.
And, props to Charles B. Pierce because Rainbow's a black man and they don't use him as a joke as you would think.
Right.
Like there's no joking with Rainbow.
No.
I mean, even like, would they really have placed a armed security at Rainbow's house for a black man in the 40s?
Probably not.
That's what I mean. Like, props to Charles B. Pierce for not using him as a joke because during the 70s, man, black characters were not treated okay. I'm just going to let you know.
Right. So Rainbow says that he wants his damn money because he had originally charged Eddie for $1 for gas, and then he said he wanted $10 for driving him to Lufkin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he wants his damn money.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And Eddie says that he's the Phantom and that he wants the press there and he will confess to everything. So Morales is like, you're not the Phantom. Which
is really funny because when Eddie is doing this, he's delivering this line in the most like nonchalant fashion because like, yeah, you got me. I'm the Phantom. I killed him. And Brittany is sitting beside me, never have seen this movie. And she's like, if this is how this fucking movie ends, I'm going to be so pissed. And I was like, what a genius move it would have been just to end the movie like this. Yep, I'm the Phantom. All right, going to jail. Right. The end.
Oh, I would have been so pissed because he's like, I killed 5 people. And I'm like, actually, the Phantom didn't kill 5 fucking people. Not yet.
I'm about to kill 2 more. Right. Hang on. But that would have been funny if that's how this fucking movie ends. Which, by the way, back on people's weird ass complaints about this movie is a couple of the videos I watched of people reviewing this were like, and then this happens and it's not even a surprise. And I was like, yeah, it shouldn't be a fucking surprise. You're doing this video in 2019.
Oh, right.
So obviously you should know they never caught the Phantom. So why would you even think they were setting up a surprise for you here? Like, because they were like, when he turns out to be the Phantom, it's not even a shock.
Okay, we get it. The movie didn't age very well. We get it.
It shouldn't be a shock, though. Right. It's not even what they were going for. Right.
Oh, anyway.
But man, that would be a funny ending. Yeah, no. Phantom.
I would have been pissed.
I was like, God, somebody needs to make that movie. Yep, no. I'm the killer. All right, going to jail. It's just the end. What the fuck?
What did I just waste my time on? Oh, I already thought that anyway. Anyway, summer resumed as normal, as it could be with the Phantom still lingering around. It's now May 3rd, 1946. A man and a woman are at home, and the woman thinks she hears someone walking outside. Then we see the Phantom shoot the man through the window.
It is a really cool shot.
Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily know how they did this, but like for it being such a low budget movie and stuff like that, it's really cool looking because you get the glass popping behind him.
Yeah.
Like in little holes, of course. I don't know. I just love the shot of him shooting this guy. It's really cool.
Yeah. So the woman hears this and she calls the operator and to call 911. And the Phantom breaks in the door and shoots her in the face, but she doesn't die. She crawls through the house, makes it outside, and then she crawls to a field. It looks like a cornfield or something. And the Phantom is looking for her. She makes it to another house and starts banging on the door, but no one comes out until the dogs start freaking out. Then a man finds her and calls an ambulance. The woman didn't die, but she was in the hospital for a few weeks. Part of this is movie and part of it is narration.
Yeah. And which, by the way, like I said, is a really cool scene, man. It's actually it's freaky at parts because especially when he busts through the window and of course you get that close up or window, he busts through the door and then you get which again, there's Jason busting through a fucking door. But, he gets the crazy eyes and shoots her in the face and stuff like that. It's really cool how they did that scene, too, because obviously they probably did that in reverse with the where she gets shot in the cheek. But like where she gets shot somewhere else. Is it the top of the head, maybe?
I think it's the top of her head.
Well, they had a little, like maybe a squib or something, maybe an early squib on the receiver of that telephone she's holding.
Oh.
So, and Dawn Wells knew this was coming. And she said, she was scared of that the entire time.
Yeah.
Like, so you really do get some like genuine fear in her eyes and stuff. And she does a wonderful job at this.
Oh yeah.
Like, because it's a ludicrous scene, but you know what I mean? Like on paper, this is silly because like she's supposed to get shot in the face like twice. And then she crawls out through a cornfield and he walks at her.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So it's kind of silly.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing.
He should have been able to catch up to her.
Yeah.
Or she would have died.
But with Dawn Wells doing her damnedest job here and then Bud as the Phantom, I think it plays out it's a very creepy scene, I think. Especially through the cornfield. That's creepy. Yeah.
Cornfields are always creepy.
Oh yeah. Throw a cornfield in your horror movie every once in a while. I think we need more damn corn horror. Corn horror?
Corn horror.
Corn horror.
It makes me think of porn. I don't know. Anyway.
Horrorcore. Anyway.
So people of the town started boarding up their windows now. Newspapers stopped making early morning deliveries, and now over 150 police cars started cruising the dark streets from dark till dawn. The 21-day period came and passed with nothing happening, but the manhunt just intensifies. The press surrounds Morales, and he says they have nothing to report, but they're continuing to work around the clock.
And Brittany is just trying to stay awake.
It's hot, and I don't want to talk about this movie anymore. Fuck you, TV. Anyway. So at the police station, they are saying that the Phantom used the same gun to kill at least 3 people, and that he is 4 days behind schedule. Norm and Morales go for a drive, and Norm says that the Phantom has to have quit or moved to another town. Morales said, or he could have been arrested for another crime. Norm says that they aren't ever going to catch him, and the captain says if they do find him, it will be a miracle. Then they get a call over the radio about finding a stolen car abandoned. Norm says it sounds like the same car he saw when he found those 2 people murdered in the beginning.
And those are 2 theories of why they never caught the Phantom killer, which, spoilers, but but those are 2 actual theories that he may have, just skipped town and just kind of stopped killing, which is even more frightening. Yeah, I don't know what it is about when you read about serial killers and you learn like they just quit for a while. It's scary. Right. Because it's like, why did they quit? There is a theory like the Golden State Killer, he quit for decades. I think they just caught him in 2018 or something. But like he quit for decades. There's theories on like maybe they age out of it, like as you get older as a man and stuff, your sexual virility kind of goes down.
Oh, yeah.
And so
yeah.
there's theories on that. There's all sorts of theories, but we never quite know why they just stop,
Right.
which is really scary.
And they can go dormant and come back.
Yeah. And of course, the other theory was he may have gotten arrested for another crime. He might be serving out a sentence.
Right.
Which is another scary fact. Like, you could be serving time with the Phantom Killer. I mean, at this point, I think he'd be dead, hopefully. But
Yes.
you got a 102-year-old dude in there.
So the police show up to check out the car, and Norm says that it is the same one. Morales and Norm decide to walk down and check out the area to see if the Phantom's still around. And they do see the Phantom, and they shoot at him.
Yeah. Okay, why the fuck? This scene makes me laugh so hard because when they see the Phantom for the first time, he's standing on a cliff looking out across the land like Mufasa. Like, one day this will all be yours, Phantom. Like, why does that make me laugh? Like, why is he out in the woods looking across the field?
I don't know.
Like, he's looking longingly like, who am I going to murder next?
Right? Oh, I know what I was going to say. I bet you the Phantom is some kind of like liberal fucking citizen, right? I'm going to say liberal just because it's easier for me, right?
Oh, the goddamn libtard.
Yes.
Texarkana.
Yes. And he's tired of fucking living in this town. And he's like, you know what? Fuck all you motherfuckers. He's heartbroken because his girlfriend broke up with. I have a whole backstory in my brain.
Dang.
Okay?
Brittany just caught the Phantom.
So he is an 18-year-old kid. I know the doctor said 35 to 40. I don't believe it. He's an 18-year-old kid, 18 or 19. His girlfriend broke up with him.
Okay.
He's heartbroken.
Okay.
Nobody else can be in love.
All right. All right.
Nobody
I
else
like
in
his
love.
theory so far.
If he cannot have anybody, nobody can have anybody, right?
Okay.
Like, that's just...
Okay.
So he rage kills.
Okay. So he's just killing couples for.
Yes.
Okay.
He finally realized it. He wakes up one day and he realizes, fuck, I'm a killer. I need to calm the fuck down. I need to go find somebody else to marry.
Okay.
So he moves away from Texarkana, and then he finds somebody to love him, and he lives happily ever after.
All right. All right. All right. I get you. I get you. But why was he looking over the Pride lands?
Because that's when he realized, oh, fuck.
He had a change of heart.
Yes, I'm a murderer.
Look at that. It just.
And I need to stop. I just need, there's plenty of fish in the sea. I need to go find another one somewhere else.
Dang, Brittany just made a fucking sequel.
This is how it would have worked in Criminal Minds, okay?
The town that dreaded sunup.
Sun up.
Yeah, it seems more hopeful. You know, instead of sundown. Yeah. Anyway.
Was it my line? Hurt people, hurt people.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. That should be the tagline. He hurt to kill his hurt.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. This is a Lifetime movie we just invented.
Anyway,
back to the movie.
so the Phantom runs off, and they try to run after him. There's a train, and the Phantom jumps in front of the train. This is the most thrilling part in the whole movie.
Man, I don't know if it's for real, but did Bud really run in front of this fucking train? Because
Probably
that's
not.
scary.
Probably not.
Okay, hopefully not.
I hope not. But he jumps in front of the train and goes to the other side. So the guy starts shooting under the train, and one of them does hit him in the leg.
Which, by the way, they do some pretty fucking cool ass slow mo during the scene where they're running up and like they're looking all badass with their shotguns and shit. It is cool as fuck, man.
Sure.
And of course, the Phantom like gets shot in the leg that blows him into the air. But anyway, it's cool though.
Right. And he ends up getting away.
Mm-hmm.
Morales orders for the bloodhounds to search, and the bloodhounds quickly lose the track of the scent because of the bayou. And no one knows what happened to the Phantom Killer.
Mm-hmm.
Some believe he was convicted of another crime. Some believe he died in the swamps. And most Texarkana natives say that he is still living there and walking free. That's a lot of years later for that.
He might not be walking at that point.
And then it goes through like all the like main characters and the years
yeah.
that they died, and we don't need to know that.
Yeah. Which, by the way, this little end scene where you see the swamp and stuff, that's reused footage from The Legend of Boggy Creek. The Town That Dreaded Sundown was released to us on not in us. It was released to us on December 24th, 1976, Christmas Eve. By the way, not a lot of horror movies get Christmas Eve treatment, but its biggest success was at the drive-in, of course, where it played until the end of 1977. Mostly, it wasn't super well received amongst critics. They cited its uneven pacing, strange comedic moments, and just bleak atmosphere, and it kind of stuck in their crawl about that ending that it was. But I mean, how do you end this? How do you end a movie about a crime that wasn't solved?
Right.
Like you can't. So I think they did what they could. But however, some actually said the comedic moments actually helped the movie make it better. Like, so, a mixed bag. You always have a mixed bag when it comes to this movie. In modern times, it's, of course, reached cult status, and that's due to, those midnight movie marathons and the video stores, But it didn't have a very good, wide video release, so you were kind of lucky if you could find The Town That Dreaded Sundown at your video store. I think it wasn't until 2013 when it finally got a DVD and Blu-ray release.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, for a long time, it kind of stuck around. I don't think a lot of people really understood the influence that this picture has had on the genre,
right.
And I think that's what makes it a very important movie.
Yeah,
to me. There was a meta sequel that came out in 2014 by Ryan Murphy and Jason Blum, which honestly it's actually a very good movie. And I don't think a lot of people pull the trigger on it because they assume it's a remake because it has the same title.
Oh, okay.
But it's not. It's actually a very interesting plot. It's about someone who starts going on a killing spree, basically copying the movie. And they dress up as the Phantom.
Oh,
wow. It's a pretty interesting movie. You actually might like that one better than this one, which
Probably.
is very neat little how that happens sometimes. But and like I said, it's not a remake. It's more of it's what you would call a meta sequel.
Okay.
Of course, it seems like people my age and younger, like I said earlier, cannot watch this movie without comparing it to other films. And I can't emphasize this enough. You cannot compare this film with any other movie. It's its own thing.
Yeah.
Because it's not like any other movie. You have these people out there comparing this thing to other slashers, and like I said, I'm not sure that I would consider this a slasher movie. Proto slasher maybe. And they get mad about the killer not being caught at the end of the movie. That doesn't make any sense to me, but but yet this film scared the shit out of theater goers when they first saw it. And I think with the right circumstances, it probably would still have that factor today. Like, I feel like if you watch this late at night, no one around, dark house, maybe it would still have a little bit of scares left into it. I don't know. Charles B. Pierce doesn't get nearly enough credit for really showing that independent films have staying power, though. I think that's an important lesson to look at.
Right.
We're talking about this thing now. Whether you like it or not, people know this movie.
Right.
He made this thing for around $400,000 in a time when they had none of the revolutionary equipment we have now. So if Pierce could do it, you certainly can. So the camera on our smartphone is 4 times better than what the camera Pierce was working with.
Right.
So, get out there and make some movies. Now, enough about me, though. And I don't even know if this is needed. What did you think about Charles B. Pierce's The Town That Dreaded Sundown from 1976?
Well, first of all,
Okay.
it was boring.
Okay.
Second of all, boring makes movie notes easy to write, but boring.
Okay.
So it makes me tired while I'm writing them. I do see the positive impact this movie has had on, I'm going to say slasher movies.
Okay.
That came after it. It had to have influenced other slasher movies.
I mean,
it had to
looking at it, it had to have.
And I appreciate it for that. But other than that, good night.
Yeah, so this is definitely a leave it movie for you. You could have seen it or left it alone. It would, and I kind of agree with you there. It's an important film in those aspects, and it's an important film to watch if you're an independent filmmaker. Watch a lot of the Charles B. Pierce's pictures, especially The Legend of Boggy Creek. That one above any of the others, honestly. But it is important in those aspects. But
right, and I can appreciate it for the things that it did.
Yeah.
In the eyes of a ranger,
That's right.
Had better know the truth of wrong from right.
The eyes of a ranger are upon you.
So what you're trying to say? What you're trying to say is
you're in Texas, look behind you. That's where the Rangers gonna be.
So what you're trying to say is that Walker Texas Ranger is better than this movie.
I mean, it's a good show. Oh, Walker Cast coming 2023.
You're gonna get crucified.
Oh my God, we've got to cover Walker Texas Ranger at some point in our career.
No,
Walker Cast, it's right there.
I've actually never watched that show, right?
You never watched Walker Tech? Why are we talking about Walker Texas Ranger anyway?
Because this movie was boring.
Well, that's the town that dreaded Sundown. Whether you like it or not, I love this movie.
I'm ready to get slashed. Okay.
Are you ready for a more traditional slasher, a more traditional kind of horror movie?
I don't know with you because you keep lying to me about shit.
I keep throwing movies at you that you're not expecting. Next week we're getting a little weird, but we're getting a little bit more scary.
Are we, though?
I think this movie is still scary today. Okay. It's Tourist Trap from 1979, I believe, and I can't really tell you about the movie until we watch it because it's one of those, I don't want to ruin it for you because you're going into this blind. I know our fans and our listeners have probably seen this because it was included in Joe Bob's original marathon on the last drive-in, the first marathon. But yes, Tourist Trap coming at you next week. That's our show for this week. Hop on over to the Patreon. We got episodes coming out there. Shooting the Shit is brand new. What did we talk about over there? Shooting the Shit is so funny.
We talk about so much shit.
So much random. At the end of this month, we're going to have Bubba Hotep on there on the Campbell Hour. And we're also doing another Twin Peaks episode for you on Damn Fine Peaks. So hop over on the Patreon. We also do updates on stuff we're working on. I've been trying to update everybody on stuff. So you'll get a lot of insider knowledge and you'll know our complete lineup of movies for the entire month, even though Brittany doesn't.
I read them.
Okay.
When I need to read them.
I thought about getting a whiteboard and writing the movies so it's not, so like.
I do know. They're right there on Patreon.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
When I need to see what movie it is, I go to Patreon and I look at it.
There you go. So you'll get to see the entire list of movies before anybody else. You don't have to wait to listen to the episode. So anyway, that's Night of the Horror File. I'm Lee Evans saying stay spooky.
And I'm Brittany. Stay horrific.
When the eyes of a ranger are upon you.
You're going to get
everywhere
lasered.
You go, you're going to see.
Thanks for listening. To get a hold of us and submit your stories, fan mail, and death threats, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and nightofthehorrorfile.com. Our theme song was written and performed by John Brennan, used with permission. Find John at shopjb.bandcamp.com and at badtechno.com. If you like what you hear, leave a good review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share the show on your social media. See you next week.